how did the keynote get the name Find Your Day?
Okay, so I was doing this program in Indianapolis, and I'd always known about this story. It's a Nicolas Cage movie, actually. And I knew a little bit about the USS Indianapolis, but when you watch the movie, and the movie didn't do the story justice, and it didn't get that good of ratings.
I did see that movie, now that you mention it. Yeah, okay.
And it was about the USS Indianapolis, which was the last ship sunk in World War II. Shouldn't have happened. It did happen. It's a horribly tragic story. They were delivering some parts for the atomic bomb, actually. And so they were on radio silence returning, and they got hit by 2 Japanese submarine torpedoes. And they went down in 10 minutes. There were 1,200 sailors on that ship, and 300 or over 900 stuck in the water. 300 perished with the ship, and over 900 were left in the water. And because they were on this secret mission, and there was a breakdown into who was contacting who, nobody knew they were in the water. And they got discovered just by accident, 3.5 days later. Well, by that time, there's 316 left. The others had perished from their injuries, dehydration, starvation, drowning, and it's the biggest shark attack in the history of the world. It was just awful. It was just awful. But 317 survived. There's a debate whether it's 316 or 317. They just discovered another person that was actually there. But anyway, so 317 survived. They started having reunions in Indianapolis a few years after the war. Okay. And as you might guess, numbers, they dwindle down.
Yeah.
There's now only one left. He's out in California. I was just reading, they just put a statue in his name. He's still alive. He's in a wheelchair and so forth, but they just had this big honor for him. He was also their police chief in this town. He went back to his hometown for like 20 some years. So he's a legend in that town. But the guy that I got to see interviewed was Edgar Harrell, and he was the 6th remaining survivor at the time.
Okay.
And he was the last Marine on the ship. But anyway, I can't read enough about this. It's just so fascinating. Yeah. Anyway, so to learn how these people survived. Well, so they, at this reunion, which you'd think, well, it's a reunion of 6 people? No. They have friends, family, dignitaries, thousands at this reunion.
It's huge.
And so a TV reporter is going to interview Edgar Harrell, because at the time he's the last remaining Marine survivor that was on the Indianapolis. And the guy starts out innocent with a question. He just says, how you doing, Mr. Harrell? And Edgar Harrell says, he does this. Great! Doing great! And the reporter says, don't mean to be disrespectful, but, that seems a little odd because, you suffered serious injuries. You were part of the worst naval disaster in history. You lost so many of your friends. You have PTSD. You're in a wheelchair. You're on oxygen. What do you mean you're doing great? And I'll never forget this line. He looked at this guy and he just goes, ever since that day I got rescued, never had a bad day. Never had a bad day. What's your day, partner? And it was one of those things when you hear it, you just go, holy moly. Has there ever been a better saying? And so what he tells this guy, he goes, that's my day. What's your day? And I thought, yeah, that may be the best trigger response, or the best way to, what day did you think you weren't going to make it? But you did. And everybody's had a day like that, where you just got cold chills and almost fell you into anxiety, or things can't get any worse. We've all said that at one time. But you got through it, didn't you? We're far more resilient than we think. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And so I use that all the time. And whenever I think, this is awful. And then I think to my day, because I have a day. And that was October 1, 2017, which was the Vegas shooting, the Vegas massacre. And my daughter was right in the middle of it. And how 1,100 bullets missed her, I have no idea how. She called me from the bottom of a porta potty. And I got on social media. And I was telling you earlier, this was one of the weird things where I should have been freaking out. But instead, I was so calm, and I just said, hon, where are you? In the porta potty. Stay there, stay low. It was like, I'm not a trained 911 responder, but I just kind of knew, and I popped on the TV ticker wasn't saying anything about it. I got on social media, found a Twitter feed from a TV anchorman in Las Vegas. He had 5 police scanners in his home, and he's broadcasting it. And he even said, this is against the law. He says, I can be fired for this, but he said, we got to do this. And so I'm hearing him, but he's also kind of interpreting him. So I knew everything. I knew before anything was on TV. I knew where the shooter was, where she was, he's Mandalay Bay, when he got silenced, got her out. I mean, I knew all this, and I got her out of there. And she and her 2 friends survived, and but sadly 59 didn't, and 900 were injured. It was just awful. It was just awful. I'm not going to mention the guy's name because he's chicken, and we shouldn't mention their names ever. People that do stuff like that. But that's what I learned that day. I learned, first of all, how much you love your kid when you think you're going to lose them. 2, learned what PTSD was and survivor syndrome, because she had both of those really bad. And I got my day, because since October 1, 2017, never had a bad day. The next day is when I realized, and the next day was when I came up with what I call the stair steps of stress. And it goes stress, anxiety, depression, and suicide. And we want to stay on that top step, because once we start going down the stairs, it sometimes is hard to stop. And everybody has stress.
Again, the force.
I call it the steps of stress.
The steps of stress.
Yeah, you go stress, and you don't manage stress, you're going to have a moment of anxiety. And fully 25% of the people in this country have said they've had a full-blown panic attack. Another 25% have said close to. And panic attack, there's no doubt when you have it. You have trouble breathing. You can't catch your breath. Your knees may buckle. You may pass out. You feel all. I mean, that's a panic attack, and it's real. And so that's a sign you're down in anxiety. We got to stop this now. And so, but after anxiety comes in depression, and that can last years. And after depression is that final step. We want to stay on the top step.
Yeah.
And we have stress. We all have stress. I mean, I say stress. Sometimes maybe it's just inconvenience. But the deal is, people go, well, I wish I just didn't have any stress. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because stress helps you develop coping skills, problem-solving skills, relationship skills. In fact, not without naming names, some of the people that have dealt with depression more than anybody else, that didn't know how to deal with problems or cope with stress at all, were trust fund babies who never had a problem in their world, never had to deal with anything, and they go right down those steps. So stay on that stress step. And with Leah went, and she was quickly going down the stairs for lots of reasons, but now she's as good as gold, because she's got a great family. A lot of stuff I talk about is stuff that she does all the time, and she's better than she's ever been in her 40 plus years of life. Yeah. So that's where it came from. Find your day. What's your day? A day when you didn't think you're going to make it, and then you did. Now, let me put an addendum to this. That day can change. And I have a new day. I lost my wife pretty recently, and didn't think I was going to get through that. It's a hard day. Hardest part was telling the grandkids, and I told on stage today, it's only the second time I've done that. I think I'm going to keep it because it seemed to work. The grandkids were, well, first of all, Delaney was, she has deep faith, and she was the one telling me, we're going to be fine. You're going to see Grandma Terry again, all that sort of stuff. And she's 12. I don't know how a 12-year-old knows this, but between her church group and her kids and her friends and who she hangs around, yeah. Archer sends me texts every day. How you doing, Papa? I just want to say hi. But the twins were, and this is what I shared, the twins were unique, because I've got one twin that's a little brainiac, and after we wiped the tears, he says, so Papa, what was the genesis of Grandma Terry's chronic Lyme disease? 10! So, well, first let me look up the word Genesis, because not a lot of 10-year-olds use the word Genesis, But then Reed, he's kind of an ornery little guy. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's like a pearl of wisdom, like I said today. And he just he was just sitting there like this the whole time. And then he goes, Papa, the clothes you wear when you die, you're going to wear forever in heaven. So be sure and wear clothes that you really, really like. Solid.
That is solid advice.
Solid,
man.
Right there.
I need to change, man.
Yes, yeah. Because those aren't your favorite clothes, are they? No. Anyway, so now, since a few months ago, since March 6, 2023, never had a bad day. Never had a bad day.
I think you can all see why this guy is an incredible speaker and making such an impact on people and organizations. Would you mind sharing, speaking of like the feedback you get afterwards, a couple of people have approached you lately. Is there anything you want to talk about? Or you don't have to.
Yeah, I do, but I don't want people to think, that I'm not the hero of the story. But I do want people to know that this stuff I'm talking about. Much of the inspiration is my late wife. She struggled for 25 years. This is a former college athlete who the last 5 years was in bed, and the last year of her life was confined to her bedroom. Couldn't get out because she had constant seizures all day. However, never lost it. She kept her perspective. She kept her state of mind. She kept her... because of those things that I've just told you. She did all of those. So she's the inspiration in many, yes, I've read a lot of books. I've done so much research on this. I've talked to so many people about it. I've listened to so many people. But she was the real inspiration for all this. And I don't know where to go with other than she... Do what I've talked about today, because I know it works. I'm not a clinical psychologist. It's all experiential, like I always say. But this stuff really does. It works. It works.
Yeah, I called you an incredible grandpa earlier. I mean, just an incredible husband. The way that the way you took care of Terry, just that whole time through the whole sickness, and especially there at the end, just always by her side, there any minute. You would have done anything for her, and I know she would have done the same for you.
Well,
and
yeah,
it was just
and I just have
amazing.
to add one thing. Yes, as a caretaker, but she wasn't a normal patient. She stayed so positive, and those things I talked about. She developed a hobby as a writer. She did not realize she was a writer. She was a great writer. She had a blog on chronic Lyme. She had thousands of followers. I just got back from a California recognition where she was recognized for her contributions to the Lyme community, and it just chilled me. You've got leaders of the biggest Lyme fundraising organization in the country standing up there saying, we have lost one of the greatest advocates. We have lost one of the greatest people in the Lyme community. And by the way, I was not Mark Mayfield at this event. I was Terry Mayfield's husband, And
that's kind of what you always are.
Yeah. That's what you are. Yeah. So anyway, it was, yes, she thanked me, not occasionally. She thanked me nonstop. It was a great person to be a caretaker for. So again, I was lucky. I was very lucky.
Yeah.
So.
Well, with that, the final call to action for the listeners, find your day, right? Find your day.
That's a benchmark. It's a benchmark. If you made it through that day, we're going to be all right.